Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Electric Bike Journal. We just had a really interesting question come through that I'm sure a lot of you are probably wondering and have scoured the internet looking for a quick and easy solution. Well, there are a lot of good answers out there, but we wanted to lend a hand in helping you figure out how to adjust your disc brakes if they happen to be rubbing or squealing and you're looking to get rid of that noise. Well, along with sending over a very nice message on how to do this process, I figured making a video to help other people out would be a great idea. We're gonna go ahead and use this Ride One Up gravel roadster to help walk us through this process. Now, this bike happens to have mechanical disc brakes, so there is a little extra step in there. But if you have hydraulic disc brakes, it'll be a little bit easier for you to help center and fix some of the maybe problems happening with your brakes. And we'll be using the front brake for this because it's easier to see, easier to get to, but it's the same fix for the rear as well, so keep that in mind. Well, this fix mainly solves the squealing issue when you're not applying your brakes and you're just riding along and you can hear them chirp. Most of the time that issue is the caliper itself is not centered on the fork, not centered on the disc, and one of the pads is touching that rotor. If it's an issue that happens after maybe a wreck or a crash of some sort, it could be damage to that disc. But if your disc is straight, which hopefully it is, and if it's a new bike, it definitely should be straight, then the issue definitely would probably be that the caliper isn't centered onto that front wheel. So being mechanical disc brakes, we're gonna do that extra step now, which is loosening up that tension nut located on the front of the brake. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So on mechanical disc brakes, on the lever, there is going to be a lock nut that if you loosen that up, you'll have some play there, and you can tighten the bigger outer bolt to give yourself some slack in your cable, and you can see plenty of slack there. Now, that's where you want to start, and don't go all the way tight. You want to go maybe all the way in and then back it out, maybe a turn, so you have some room to loosen it up in the end. The second place to go is down here on the brakes themselves. So this is still in that extra step. We do have another lock here located on the brakes. And these are super tight. We're gonna go ahead and wanna give some slack there, so that way there's some good play in that cable before we begin actually getting those pads tight to each other. Now, after you have slack in that cable, this is when you want to take your hex wrench, and it's gonna be the 5mm. You're gonna go ahead and hop in here, and you're gonna break the bolts free on both top and bottom of your caliper. Now, this is the step that is the same on both hydraulic and mechanical disc brakes. So you're gonna break them free and then kind of snug them up a little bit, because you want the brake caliper itself to be able to move around inside, but you don't want it so loose that it can go up and down. You don't really need a lot of play in there, but just enough you can see there that it moves around. With play on that front wheel, we're going to stand up if you're not using a bike stand like us right now. I'm gonna go ahead and lift up the front of the bike and give that front wheel a spin. Once it's spinning, grab your brake real hard, real fast, and hold it tight. Keep that lever tight. Some people can use a strap to tighten that down to free up both hands, or you can just go ahead and navigate holding one hand on that brake lever. You're gonna take that hex wrench back, and you're gonna snug those bolts back up. And once they're nice and taut, you know you're in a good spot. Pay attention, sometimes the paint coating, sometimes that hardware, when you tighten them up, you'll actually see it catch onto your caliper itself and move it. That's something you don't want. On this bike specifically, I noticed that happening a lot, so I went ahead and took some sandpaper and a file and cleaned up the surfaces so they were smooth and free of anything that was catching to move, but that is definitely not something that everyone will have to do. But once those are nice and snug, you kind of make sure that they Aren't gonna move around much more. That's snug. And that's snug. You can go ahead and let go of your brake now. And you still have a lot of slack in your cable tension, which is good. But when you move your wheel around, now you're not gonna hear it binding at all. Now with these mechanical disc brakes, I happen to have on the back side here an adjustment for that inner pad. And if it's dragging at all after this adjustment, I can go ahead and release that inside pad to move it back out. Now I won't have any drag on that front wheel, and that wheel spins nice and smooth. With all that done now, you can come back into your cable tensions and really kind of reset everything back to where you like it as far as how tight those cables are. And I like to match the front and the rear, so that way I have the same pull on both lever. And that's just a feel thing. Depends on how far you want to pull your lever to have those brakes engage. Like I said, I kind of go back and forth between both brakes, get them feeling the same. Go ahead and lock those cables back out. Now with everything tightened up, you're good to go, and that should help circumvent some of that squealing and rubbing that's happening while you're just riding statically and not applying the brakes. If after doing that and centering your caliper on the fork and over that disc, and you're still noticing some rubbing sound happening, we would definitely suggest to take the front wheel off and take a T25 Torx head and undo the bolts on that disc rotor and lay it on a flat surface. With it on that flat surface, like a piece of glass or something. If you notice that it's not making contact all the way around, that means your rotor is bent. There are tools to help straighten that out, which maybe we'll save for another video. But if it is bent significantly, you might be looking into replacing that disc rotor. But ideally, the disc is totally fine, and all you needed to do was recenter your caliper. Well, hopefully this video is helpful to at least one of you. I'm sure it'll be helpful to a handful of you. It's a really easy thing to do. It's something I do on our bikes all the time when they come through, especially when they're brand new out of the box. Some bikes you just happen to notice a little rub after a while. So recentering your calipers to make sure that they are where they need to be is definitely helpful. Mechanical disc brakes are very easy to work on. For the fact that I can adjust where the pads are at all times and really be able to go in there and put them exactly how I want them. Makes me enjoy mechanical disc brakes, and these Tektro Aries brakes are very nice and they have a great feel. Well, leave a comment down below if you have any questions or comments, or maybe let us know if you have a different issue happening with your disc brakes. We can help. We'd love to try to offer what we know, and maybe it'll prompt another video to show how to clean your brake pads or how to bleed your brakes, something in that nature. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.